Hello, welcome back, everyone. Today is Friday, March the 28th. We're doing the class in person, live. We switched it around this morning. We started earlier, and you'll have the other class commencing after this one is finished. So let's start with the short lesson we have in store for you today. We're going to be focusing on Figma. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started. I was just mentioning to my cohort how we updated the section here. We're into the interaction and design principles, where we get to create prototypes and work with different low fidelity to high fidelity designs to convert them into actual prototyping mobile apps. You can do this with websites too, right? But where everything is headed right now, apps are becoming a little more popular, more common. Even websites converted to apps. Most people, let's face it, even you can ask yourself that you're on your phone more than you're on your computer, unless you have to do work, right? So it's becoming a whole new different dynamic. We have to think mobile first. This is why this next project that I gave you is going to be a group project, and you will be working with the people we assigned earlier. By the way, the list, I don't know, you probably know already, I moved it up on the top of the page. So the group members link for mobile app project is right there. If you click on it, you will see all the group members assigned. I did notice there's two groups that have fours. I mean, I prefer threes, but because you already have it set up, because there's four people, just so you know, the expectation is going to be a little higher, right? Because there's four of you. So just make sure you delegate the work properly and everyone does their part to contribute, okay? So the more people, more expectation is as well. The presentation also is going to be nicely, I guess, segmented, whereas each member has to present a part of the presentation. So one of you might talk about, how you came about the idea. The other person can talk about the competition and the market research or the market analysis that was done. The other person can talk about the onboarding and the approach of the prototyping and the design fundamentals and the UI kit, the wireframe, the schematic diagram, how everything's connected. And the other person can demonstrate the app, how the app works, right? I have had groups in the past that made a recording of a video of showing how the app works intuitively without you even doing anything. You just play the video, because you can record a session of how you interact with the app. I believe XD has an option, and so does Figma. You can screen record as well. Many ways of presenting this, and it'll be really fun because you'll be, engaging with your other peers in the classroom, and you can ask questions and things like that after. We also decided that we have a presentation night on April the 11th, was it? Just want to make sure I get my date straight. This doesn't make sense for us to come here and then you guys have to go to the IGS building after on the same day. It's quite the trip. I've done it myself a few times from downtown Yonge and Bloor all the way up here. It's not fun, especially in traffic on a Friday too. Even driving, right? I have to drive most of the time, but even if you take like a train or a bus or subway, it's still quite the way to get there. So for that day, what I'm gonna make an announcement, and I'll confirm with Roberto, is we won't have that class that day. We'll just move it to another day, okay? We'll just have to do a makeup class, and I'm gonna make sure you guys are doing your presentations for that class on a different day. It's not gonna conflict at all. I'll make the updates coming up. Most importantly, I wanna make sure all the groups are done properly. I know sometimes it doesn't always work out perfectly working with different people, but please communicate with me, communicate with your group members. I want to make sure this is at least settled for this week. Because I mean, let's be honest, we're heading into April next week. We only have a few weeks left. Okay, so we want to make sure this is done. But I'm confident that with your skill level now and the group that you have, you can get this done realistically within a 2-week time frame. If you really put all your effort into it, you can do this in 2 weeks, no problem. If you all put your, efforts forward. All right, but let's not leave it to last minute, right? Because we all know how that works out. So these are the groups. Make sure you communicate with me as you already have and confirm your members. And I like to keep this up there for you to confirm. So then we have the virtual class link, which I already selected. The YouTube channel is always updated, as you know. So this lecture that I'm doing now, it'll be also updated there as well. Let's head down to our module, the interaction design principles. So here we're going to see the project, of course, it's there. The group presentation assignment also is part of that. So part of your mark will be assessed in your presentation. So I want to make sure you do good on that. Portfolio night's different. That's going to be a one-on-one thing. You're an individual. This group presentation is you're going to be part of your group. So all of you have to attend this presentation to get your points. Okay. And then the other mark will go toward the actual app itself, the project itself that you're all going to be presenting or handing in. All right, so this is class 11 and 12. So if we go down to the, I already downloaded these files, but where I left off last week, I showed you how to do wireframe design for an iPhone 16. So I like to kind of continue where I left off from that class, because there was a few questions that I had that I wanted to answer, and also to kind of keep everything congruent, right? So it's nice and connected. So I'm going to kind of talk about this a little bit, and then get into the other items as well. So here's where we left off last week. If you watch the video as well, you can see all that. I'm going to minimize this now. Open Figma. Right? So we did something like this where we're able to produce a low fidelity prototype of an app, be like a social media app of some kind or whatever. And we're able to create a scrollable page and a fixed element. This is very important because once you have this established, the rest of it is pretty easy. You just drag and drop some images, pick some colors, pick the fonts, pick the styles, and design the actual prototype. But you got to start off with the low fidelity first. So I want to make sure you all understand that. And to complete this, you have to obviously follow the steps. Just to play quickly, I'm going to hit the play button here. Oh, by the way, I was able to download Figma on my phone. It wasn't really updating properly, but now I was able to view the prototype on my phone as well. Some of you already did that. It was nice to see. So I encourage all of you to open up the Figma app, okay? And you can open up all your prototypes on your phone, and you can show off to your friends, colleagues, or potential employers. You can say, this is what I made. And it'll actually look like a real app. Right? The only thing it's limited to, of course, is the development tools, which again, if that's going to be something that you're going to be continuing, that'll be done as well. So here's the app again. Just quickly, we're going to click on this button because that's the one we made work. We made a scrollable page. We also fixed the bottom, the footer, let's call it, with the menu. The top is another fixed item. So that we did last week, okay? We also did this. When you execute this thumbnail, could be like a portfolio, a gallery, a section, a post. It opens up a pop-up window and it dimmed out the background to like a 50% black. So it's like a gray. And you can click on it, right? Nothing's going to happen. But if you click on the little X, we execute it to close, right? So open, close. Or we can also, as an alternative measure, if you click outside of the image, it'll close also, okay? So there's two triggers there. So that's also within that, and that was nicely done that way. And to go back, we simply, again, if people don't know, if they click anywhere outside the area that they're supposed to, it hints them. It tells them, hey, perhaps you should click on those blue highlights. And people know to click here or there to go back to the page, okay? So that's all good. This was all done last week. The video's up there, so you watch it, and you can see how we executed these triggers. Now, let's talk about bringing some real content here. This is all nice, but how about bringing in some real images? Well, bringing images in Figma is a lot more tricky than you think, because XD was easier. You drag and drop. You can't drag and drop in here like that. I mean, I can drag and drop an image, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go inside the box. That's why I think I like XD. A lot of designers love XD with the way it feels of working with Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator. That's why it's still a good tool, but unfortunately, it's not being supported anymore, and you have to use Figma as a UX, UI professional. So that's fine. We'll just have to work with whatever is given to us. I have a folder here called Class 12 Paris Olympics. I just kept it from before. So if I was to drag one of these images onto my prototype like this, let's say I wanted to go in this box because it's selected. Okay? It's right. It's not going to work, right? It's not going to work. It's actually going to put it on top, and it's gonna just kind of overlay itself on top of it. Doesn't recognize the box. Isn't that sad? We got spoiled, eh? We got spoiled with XD because it just dragged it in there. Like, why the heck not? Come on, guys, right? So unfortunately, unless there's like some kind of a shortcut, I looked at some tutorials online. I was hoping they would fix that by now. So this is how you're supposed to do it. You click on the box or the target. Well, two ways. You can drag the image and resize it. So instead of this, I can just delete it, drag the image, right? And basically resize the image proportionally. And yes, it'll proportionally, I'm not holding shift or nothing. It'll just resize the image, right? Nothing wrong with that. You can do that and copy, paste, and do different things. Now, here's the trick. Because we all think the same now. We're using, like, everything you do right now, you're comparing it to, like, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. Like, you want to be able to be flexible with your, image integration and stuff. So what do you do now? How do you resize it? Well, you can grab the sides, it'll do the same thing, right? How do you crop the image? It's not like you can double click and then, like in Illustrator, when you go to like isolation mode and you resize it, you got a clipping mask. Doesn't have that. So the only thing you're stuck with is this. You hold shift, okay? Shift keeps it constrained. And if you do this from the corners, you can also round the corners, by the way. If you hold Command or Control, okay, look what happens. You can crop the picture that way. So that's the trick I found that works for me in order for you to do cropping, okay? Command or Control, and you can even grab, yeah, the corners work too. So I can basically grab this logo if I like, and then when I resize it, it'll resize it like that. You see what I mean? That's your shortcut there, Command or Control with it, right? I think I have this thing locked by default. You don't have to hold shift. It automatically constrains it. But there is another way. Oh, there we go. So then if you double click after, if once you do that and you double click, then you'll get these cropping features too. So it only works once you apply it, then you can go and edit it further, okay? I can do that. It's weird how it works on some systems, so just be aware of that. It's not your typical, user-friendly method of doing things. Unlock, I was looking for this. Unlock aspect ratio, okay? So if you have this on, it keeps the ratio. If you turn it off, right? If you turn it off, this is what I was trying to show you. You can actually transform it. Not that you want to do that, but you want to keep this aspect ratio on so the images don't get distorted, okay? I want to show you one more trick here. Let me bring in this other image, right? There's another one called resize to fit. There we go. If you turn on, it's really finicky, guys. That's what I'm trying to get across. If you turn off your resize to fit, and if you turn off lock aspect ratio, here's what else happens. You ready for this one? The image, you can actually resize the box this way. It's like a free for all or free type of transform resize together. It's a little awkward, but it works, and some people like it. You know, the people that like to use like Canva and stuff like that. This is their kind of thing, right? So you can do stuff like that. But in order to get this to work, you have to play with these little triggers. You might want to turn this on, right? If you do that, it'll do this for you. And you got to turn this on to keep it kind of constrained, okay? So these are the little buttons here that can control that. And again, alternatively, hold control. You could kind of override it yourself, okay? It's very not apparent. You have to kind of play with it to figure it out. And double click gives you the cropping features as well. So there's the swimmer that we're looking for, okay? Right, and once it's done, you can then put this inside. Look, again, this is outside the artboard. This is inside the artboard, right? So you gotta have to place it inside and use it in that regard. There's another way to put an image. I don't want you to think always drag and drop. It's not a very methodical. You might want to be able to do it in a more controlling fashion. So watch this. Let's say I want the image to fit in here, okay? Within the proportions and everything. I kind of like this method better instead of dragging and dropping. It's a little too wild. So if I select a box that I already made and I go over here and I click on the fill, remember it's blue, and I can tell it to become, instead of a fill, watch this. That's a solid color. This is a gradient. This is an image, and this is a video. So you can do either or. Let's say you want to do a gradient, right? Let's say you want to do an image. You get to pick what content you like. If you want to do an image, then you click on here to upload it from your computer. So you click on upload from computer, you look for the image, double click, triple click, there's the picture. This way you don't have to resize it. Because what's the point of resizing if you made a grayscale, prototype, right? You want it to fit perfectly in those positions, then leave it alone. So in that case, you do this and you're good to go, right? And then again, of course, it's kind of resizing and stuff. You can work with that measure there. And if you have to push it forward, you can then hold Control or Command to have more control of your box parameters, right? Okay, so are we clear on that? I really wanted to stress that out and demonstrate it because it's something you gotta kind of have a feel for it, right? You gotta try it out. And then when it opens that one, same thing happens here. I'm gonna replace this with an image as well. Sure. Okay, there. So I just replaced images with my grayscale contents that I had. And if I played the app again from where we left off last week, now we have more, we dressed it up with, and colors, of course, right? Keep in mind your colors are here. The colors that you have selected are already set and saved, so you can use consistency that way. You can also go to the fill within the box, of course, right? Here's your libraries. You have libraries too, right? And the libraries are something you can add or control also within your application. Look, created on this file or other libraries that are built into the program. So you can access some external things as well. I like to keep with custom because you have everything here just to keep it simple. And I'm going to change this to a different color perhaps. And you can see how that changed. Okay, so colors, images, graphics, fonts, text, all that stuff. You have to, as a graphic designer, put it all in there. So let's go ahead and press play. All the changes should be applied, right? There's the logo. This is not scrollable, but if we click on this button, we have these that are scroll. And then if we click on this image, oh, look, it's transparency, so it overlaid on top, right? That's kind of cool if you're looking for that effect. If not, it'll just cover with like a background. This was a PNG file, so it kept its transparency. So you can just close it, open it, and close it, right? But if you do like a JPEG or like image with no background, it'll cover it, right? Just like it did with the box. That was not planned, by the way. It was fluke. Kind of like it. It worked out okay. All right, next example. Because now we know how to scroll, fix positions, navigate, replace images with colors and graphics, and convert a grayscale into a, let's call it a high fidelity wireframe. I set up another example for you. I called it wireframe 2. This one, I wanted to show you how to create a horizontal scroll. Because let's be honest, a lot of you go to your apps and you don't just scroll up and down. Some of you scroll side to side. That's called a horizontal scroll. For that one, you have to create what's called a frame. And a frame is created, it's like a group. It's even associated with the same shortcut as a group, like Command G is group, Command Shift G is frame. The difference is a frame has a perimeter of a group that you can control with a scrolling action. A group doesn't do that. A group just groups the objects, like you normally group the objects in Illustrator, right, or Photoshop even. But a frame groups them and it gives them scrollability. So just remember frame with scrolling, okay? That's the good way to mentally associate it. So let's see how that works. To show you, I'm going to press play and demonstrate this little demo I put together for you. And again, I have the sticky header and footer. But yeah, this is how it scrolls. So there's my mouse. I'm scrolling left and right. Left and right, I'm scrolling. I can also scroll up and down. If I go to another page, oh, there's the page here. I can scroll up and down, right? But this is the section here that I can scroll side to side, up and down vertically. And I can go also left and right horizontally, right? And I mean, the possibilities are endless at this point. You can navigate, scroll, tap, drag, open images. Like, I mean, that's the stuff you see in apps all the time. The only thing we haven't done yet is more advanced menus, which I'll cover the little drop-down hamburger menu and stuff. That's like later on, I'll do that first. But this stuff alone can do a lot of things already in your projects. So how do you do that? How do you do this horizontal frame? So for that one, I'll demonstrate it here on this particular example. Maybe I'll use the second one. So I'll delete it and do one from scratch, okay? So to do one from scratch, I'm going to use perhaps maybe even real images like the ones I used earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and drag. Well, let me drag a box first. So I'm going to go to design. Remember, we're designing, we're not prototyping. So design, we're going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to use a rectangle box like this. You want to leave a portion of it like kind of visible so you can see the next thumbnail like you would in a lot of the apps. And then the user intent is to scroll to the next one. Or you can put little arrows. You can click on the arrow and then that can scroll. That's a little more kind of systematic. I'll show you how to do that too if you like a carousel. But this is more natural on a mobile phone. People like to click and drag, okay? It's a drag function. So to do that, we're going to use this little box here. Now watch this. Option, drag, shift, right? Look right about there. I let go, right? And then I press Command D 5 times, 4 times to get 5. Now I got 5 boxes and they're all nested inside the frame. How do I know? Because here, iPhone 16, if it's outside, you won't see it. But if it's inside the iPhone 16-2 second artboard, you can see it right here. So now watch what I'll do. I'm going to select all of them and be careful because they might be invisible because you can't see them in the art. If you do this, now you can see them because they're not inside the artboard, right? Once they're in the artboard, it clips it for you. By default, the frame, let's call it the artboard, it clips, it's like a clipping mask, so you can't see the outside of it. Okay? So to put it back in, you basically do this, see, like that. And it recognizes the artboard to go back in. Make sure it doesn't overlap other artboards because that can cause a problem too. It's like, where do we belong, here or there, right? 2 artboards. So you want to make sure there's no frame, maybe move it away from there so it doesn't overlap another artboard here. So you want to do this in a way so it doesn't conflict with what you're doing. Okay, so now let's do this frame thing. So to do that, you right click, and instead of group selection, which is Command G, you do what's called frame selection, which is Command Shift G. So the difference is, like I explained earlier, it frames it together for scrollability action. Okay, so let's frame the selection now. And it's still elongated all the for this horizontal parameter. So what I'm going to do is grab the end of the horizontal parameter and drag it to right about here. And I would make my margins on my app so I know where it stops. Now there's one more step. Because when you do this, you still have to tell it, listen, if I do this, I want to clip, like, you know how clipping mask works in Illustrator? What does the clipping mask do? You have a rectangle and it clips the rest out, right? But even in Photoshop, they're moving the clipping masks or layer masks. So this becomes like a mask. But in order for that to work, you have to tell it to clip content right here. So if you click on this little button, it'll act as a clipping mask, right? And the next thing is the prototyping measures. So for that, you have to go to prototype, and the prototype recognizes the frame selection that we just made. And then you can say, first of all, the first thing is the position. We want this to scroll with the page, right? So it'll scroll with the parent. The parent is the artboard or the frame. The second measure is the overflow. The overflow is what happens inside the frame. Well, that one we're going to do what's called a horizontal scroll. You see, this is where you have to be very careful. I'm recording this, by the way. So in case it's not making sense right now, just watch it again, follow the steps, and you can apply a horizontal, because the intent is for this to scroll horizontally, right? That's why we want to do it. Yes, you can do also vertical, and you can do both directions. So if you want to put a map of Google, like a little mock-up of how, let's say you're doing like an Uber app, finding a location, you can drop a map bigger than the rectangle and have it scroll like a real map. But in this case, we're just doing left and right. We're constraining the parameters to only go left and right, horizontal. And you can do vertical or both directions with the map example I just gave. So let's stick to this one. Okay. And that's how you do an actual horizontal scroll within a frame. So let's test it right away. We'll just go to this artboard here. We'll press the play button. We'll test our. So scroll up and down. And this is the one we just told to do this. Because people like to scroll and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's put some real images in there, right? And not only that, we can make those images clickable and open up little thumbnails and stuff, right? But I'm just going to do the images for now. I don't want to take this too, because I already demonstrated these things. I don't want to mix them too much, but let's put the content in there. So I'm going to double click, triple click, quadruple click, as many clicks as it takes for you to isolate this image as a selection. Because don't forget, they're still part of a group. And whether the group is framed as a frame group, it's still a group, right? So for you to click outside, click inside, it's the group. Double clicking selects the item inside the group. So then I can go ahead and drag an image that will look like this. Well, by the way, I can't drag, remember? The dragging only works if it's like you have to play with it. So instead of dragging, I'll be very careful. I'm going to go back to design. I'm going to click on the fill. Instead of that gray box, I'm going to replace it with an image. I'm going to click on the image here, upload from my computer. And I'm going to use this image right over here, right? And the next one is I'm going to go to the next image here. So double click basically, instead of the fill. I'll go back to the images, upload from my computer, and I'm going to use this other one. Okay. Another way to select them if you can't see them is using your layer menu. Okay. So you can select any one of them and address it accordingly. So this one's going to have a different image. And you can see the preview of it, what it looks like. And if you really, I mean, you can do it both ways. You can kind of drag it in here to see what it looks like and then put it back, press undo, like the other ways of doing it. But sometimes they just have to experiment with it, play with it, test it, and stuff like that. The last one is this one here, the fourth one. Again, I'll go to fill, image. For this one, I'm going to click on the, whatever, I'll put the map for now. And the last one, back to fill, back to image. I'll bring in this one here. Okay. All right. So I just replaced the rectangle boxes with images. Press play. This is the first one. Click on this one and scroll up and down. And yes, I have the images now. I can scroll through, right? Just like that. So it's easy for you to populate the graphics, the images, and the real content after you create your grayscale prototype. Because once you get the grayscale done, just, color it in, right? I think it has more capabilities. I'll be honest with you, because a lot of students don't have video access. We don't even touch video sometimes, but it's not difficult. It's, you figured it out with your previous project. It's only limited to 15 megabytes. And there's a reason for that, because it might crash and stuff. You can't put a 2-hour DVD movie in there, right? Obviously, it has limitations. I'm sure it does. I can read up more about it if you want and get some more info, but you can also do the same. And definitely video. Let's just, maybe I have just an example here. You just simply, instead of the image, you select video and you grab video content and it'll play it the same way. Test demo MP4. Yeah, so it does have a, I think that one's too big, but yeah, you can do some editing too, for sure. Okay. So that'll wrap up the lesson for today. Okay. I just hope this was a good addition to where we left off last week. The next thing that I wanted to show you next class is the advanced prototyping mechanisms like rollovers, drop-down menus, triggers, sliders, things like that. Because let's face it, a lot of the apps do have those things. But again, even let's say you want to limit yourself to this, you can still make a really nice prototype using the knowledge that you have right now. Okay, from grayscale to this, you can scroll, click, navigate, drag. And a lot of apps use this very same functionality to make things work. Not every app has a drop-down menu. Okay, some apps prefer not to have it because some people don't want to click and they just don't need the menu. Okay, a lot of apps are more direct. They click here to order, click now. You click, you order, you click your food, go to the shopping cart, make a payment. Right? There's not too many drop-down menus, but I'll show you how to do one just because you might want to have more options available for that. All right, so let's hope that good. The mic's not muted this time. The last time was, oh no. It's good. So thanks for watching. This was, like I said, a continuation of last class. We'll see you guys in the next class next week. Bye for now. Have a great weekend.